Welcome everyone to episode 61 of the Ski Podcast. Exciting day today. We're going to be discussing the latest in quarantine and how the industry stands for this winter. We've got a report on actual skiing from Engelberg, chatting and finding out a little bit more about developments in the Jungfrau region. We're going to be finding out about Courchevel, sustainable clothing from Picture Organic, diversity in the industry, and we're going to be touching on Ski Book Group. And to go through all of that with me today, I have two guests, and they are in order Krystelle, who's head of marketing at snow.co.uk. Morning, Krystelle, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm well, thank you. It's been a long time since we had you on the show. I think it was in about episode 5 or something like that. So
yes, it was a while ago.
Yeah, we've all moved on. We'll touch on that later. We also have friend of the show, Alex Irwin, who is founder of the YouTube channel 150 Days of Winter. Hi, Alex. How are you?
Hi, Ian. I'm very well, thank you. From a very wet Courchevel.
From Courchevel, I should have mentioned that, of course. Welcome to the show. I'd also like to thank our sponsors and partners, Switzerland Tourism, for continuing to support the show. And we're going to be chatting about a couple of areas in Switzerland as we go on. But firstly, I'd like to just start off by asking you when you last went skiing. Krystelle, can I start with you? When did you last go skiing?
Yeah, so I didn't actually get to go the last season because of one thing and another. So the last time I actually skied was the end of the season before. So in March 2019, I went to Solden in Austria. So incredible week. So it was a good week to go out on.
Okay, that's good. Well, all the more important then that we get these quarantine things sorted out. What about you, Alex? I'm guessing it was in Courchevel, although you might have done some summer skiing.
Unfortunately, at the end of February, I broke my leg rather badly. So
yeah, I remember now.
Which put paid to any summer skiing, which really annoyed me. And I so wanted to be able to say that I'd been skiing like 3 days ago. And I was actually going to go to Tignes, but work took over. But I plan on going to Tignes on Monday.
Okay. So when will you go skiing next? Certainly ahead of probably almost everyone listening to the podcast. We look forward. Maybe you can send us a report about that one, Alex.
Sure.
So just thinking about skiing, I mean, you mentioned Tignes. That opened last weekend, as did Les Alpes on the glaciers there for autumn skiing. There's also plenty of skiing around in Austria on their glaciers. I believe Davos and Gstaad in and I've got to get that pronunciation right. Sarah Roloff will correct me. Gstaad in Switzerland are opening this weekend.
Do you pronounce the G?
Long discussion.
I'll
have to refer back to whichever episode it was that Sarah corrected our pronunciation.
How you say it, Gstaad. How we say it, Gstaad.
But we all know where I mean, and it's opening this weekend. So there is skiing open at the moment, but if you're in the UK, currently we have a lot of quarantines in place that are preventing us. And previously we discussed about the government, a global task force. There has been some news on that since our last, since episode 60. It looks like Grant Shapps is suggesting that there will be, they're favouring a system where when you get back, you have a test. And if you're negative, you're released from quarantine early. So it could reduce quarantine to 7 days. And that probably looks like the best kind of position at the moment. So here's your big question then. I'll start with you, Krystelle. Do you think British people will be able to go skiing this winter?
I do think in some capacity, people will be able to ski, but it will be a very different experience this year compared to what we used to. It may be in Scotland, it may be a snow dome, it may be a small ski country that no one's ever heard of before. There will be opportunities, but yeah, it's still so difficult to actually make a like committed decision on right now. But there will be something, but we're just not too sure. But there's a lot of good signs this year. There's been this week, sorry. There's been a lot of movement. You know, there was the the test on the Heathrow to New York flight this
Yeah.
week, which is very exciting. So as long as we can quickly get that rolled out and up the testing, I think that's our way forward, and that's how we will get to go to the mountains this winter.
Yeah, I mean, I would personally favour, instead of what Grant Shapps is suggesting, a test after return. I think after 5 days of coming back, a system where you have a test prior to travel and a test on arrival. So if you were coming back to the UK, you could have a test just before, within 72 hours of leaving, and then when you get back, and you could cut quarantine down even further. Or what we mentioned in episode 60, the Common Pass project, which is effectively a globally recognised app which would have your biodata on it. But Alex, you're in Courchevel. You will therefore be skiing, or in there, or in Tignes, or somewhere else. But what do you think about British people being able to come out? And even, you know, you're in France. I know a number of different departments in France have introduced a curfew from 9 o'clock.
I think it's starting today or tomorrow.
Right, in Courchevel?
Well, in the Haute-Savoie and Haute-Savoie region.
But do you think the ski resorts will open as planned? Because they're certainly saying they're going to.
I am super optimistic, probably overly optimistic that they will open. But I also think there's going to be an irony that because of the amount of snow we've already had, I actually think that this season we're going to have the best snow in the world, and no one's going to be there to ski on it.
Yeah, okay. No, I kind of see what you're saying there. I mean, I would say that from the British market point of view, to have a really good snow season, and particularly to have a really good start to the season, would be about the best possible thing that we could have. Because if the resorts are open and we can show people are skiing and there's really good snow, there is such a huge amount of pent-up demand that as soon as it is feasible to travel, there are going to be a lot of people going out to the Alpes and the Pyrenees and all over the place.
Of course.
Well, let's get a report from someone who has been skiing. Charlie Rees sent me an email saying, really enjoying listening to the show. Skiing is my passion. The pod has inspired me, and offered to send us in a snow report. He'd listened to Robin's report from Montafon in Austria. And he sent us this report from Engelberg, which he recorded last weekend.
Hi all, this is Charlie reporting from Engelberg in Switzerland. Currently sat at about 3,000 metres on top of the Klein Titlis mountain, looking out across a sea of cloud towards the west at the Eiger and Jungfrau and many other famous Swiss mountains. The sun is shining and the sky is blue, and there are many people out enjoying the lovely conditions. So a little bit about Engelberg in case you've not heard of it before. So the town is situated in the canton of Obwalden in central Switzerland, and is a short distance from Lucerne and within easy reach of Zurich Airport by train or car. The town became famous for its Benedictine monastery that was set up in the 12th century, and this is where Engelberg gets its name. So Engelberg translates to Mountain of Angels in English. It's a very pretty ski town dominated by major mountain peaks over 3,000 metres and with many nice hotels that you can stay in, and is popular both in the summer and winter. In terms of skiing, so it's become a bit of a mecca for free riding in recent years, but it's also suitable for all abilities as there's a significant amount of piste-based skiing as well. The resort itself is split into two parts, with the majority of the challenging skiing on the Titlis, but some easier skiing on the lower slopes, or a short bus ride across the town on the Brunny side of the valley. A major attraction is the rotary cable car up to Titlis, which is quite unique and gives an amazing panorama of surrounding peaks. And there's also a cliff walk and an ice cave at the top of the mountain as well, so suitable for non-skiers as well. The resort opened on Saturday the 10th of October this season, with excellent snow conditions and about 10 kilometres of marked piste currently open. There's been about a base of 90 centimetres, with more snow forecast in the coming weeks and months. So yeah, looking set to be a good season in terms of snow. The skiing is open up until the T-bar on the glacier. However, there is an unmarked piste going down to Stand, which many people have been using today, and is very good, although a little bit thin in parts, and has put a few dinks in my skis. The snow cannons currently aren't on, however there's a snow line down to around 1,400 metres, which is pretty good for this time of year. In terms of coronavirus restrictions, so masks are required on all public transport in Switzerland, and this also applies to cable cars and gondolas. However, chairlifts and draglifts are exempt from this, which is quite nice, so when you're actually skiing, unless you're taking a gondola, you don't actually need to wear a mask. Additional restrictions, so when travelling on the main gondola up from the town, it's limited to 4 people per cabin instead of the normal 8. But obviously if you're going as a family of more than 4, you can go together, that's not a problem. The mountain restaurants and facilities are all open as usual, with social distancing measures in place as you would expect. In other news, in terms of early season skiing, Andermatt, another resort that's about an hour away from here that also has a glacier, is scheduled to open on the last day of this month, so that should be good. And in Switzerland, as mentioned on the podcast before, there are also another 3 glaciers that you can go skiing on. So Saas-Fee, Zermatt and Les Diablerets, the Glacier 3000, are also open. Both Saas-Fee and Zermatt are looking to open more pistes in the coming weeks, and likewise with the other resorts. So it's well worth considering potentially next season looking at doing an early season trip in sort of October half-term time, and tying in some of these glaciers. So one potential idea could be to stay in Visp and ski both Saas-Fee and Zermatt on alternate days, and then on your way back to Geneva you can make a detour and ski up on Glacier 3000. So yeah, there's plenty to do in terms of the early season skiing, and the benefit as well is there are less people here. The lift prices are often cheaper, and so are the hotels, and also if the weather's not great and you can't go skiing, there's plenty of stuff to do in the valley, so it's well worth considering potentially for next season. So yeah, I hope this has found you well and proved interesting, and I wish you all the best for the coming months, and hope you keep safe.
Krystelle, have you ever been to Engelberg in Switzerland?
I haven't. I've never actually skied in Switzerland apart from popping over to Zermatt on a trip to Slovenia.
You've never skied in Switzerland? Well, that is something we have to correct, because there's some amazing skiing over there. Let me know if you want to some connections. I can help you out on that.
Yes,
so you've only been over to Zermatt when you were in Slovenia. Alex, Engelberg?
No, sorry.
No, okay, well, I'll chip in here then, because Engelberg, Angel Mountain, literal translation. Really good skiing for advanced skiers. If you go up onto the tit list, I was lucky enough, I must have been on a press trip or something. I can't exactly remember now, but I know we had a guide, and we went on this massive, big itinerary off-piste run where we ended up getting a taxi back into town. I should probably recall more detail about it, but there's lots and lots of challenging off-piste skiing there. So I'd hope to be back there again. What I do remember about Engelberg was our flight landed into Zurich quite late, and so I thrashed it in the hire car from Zurich to the resort. And when I got home, I got 3 speeding fines, all from speeding cameras in Zurich. So I must have gone under a whole bunch of bridges. And I probably shouldn't admit this I might have mentioned it on the pod before, but I moved shortly after that, and I just ignored them and hoped they went away. And I was slightly nervous when I flew into Geneva for the next few times after that, but I appear to have got away with it. But you can't use this in evidence. There's a statute of limitation on speeding fines. Also from the Switzerland front, earlier this week I spoke to Remo Kaeser, who works for the Jungfrau Railway company, and they've developed the Eiger Express, which we mentioned in an earlier episode. And let's just listen to what he had to say about that. Good morning. I'm delighted to be joined here today by Remo Kaeser, who's Director of Sales from Jungfrau Railways. And the reason I wanted to have you on, Remo, because I mentioned in the podcast I think a couple of episodes ago, about the new Eiger Express, and I believe that it's your company who've developed that lift and have brought it to fruition. It's been in planning for a long time, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, good morning. Pleasure to speak to you. And indeed, it was a very long way to go for the Eiger Express, for the V Cableway project. And we are very, very happy that we can take the final step and open the project in its full on 5 December 2020, which will be a massive upgrade for the whole Jungfrau ski region.
Yeah, I've been to the Jungfrau region before and skied in Wengen and Grindelwald, and a long time ago, I went to the Jungfrau Joch. It was actually in 1990, so that's far too long ago to remember. But one of the big advantages of the Eiger Express, the new V cableway, is it's going to reduce the amount of time to get up to the Jungfrau Joch, which is the highest point in the area, isn't it?
Yes, totally correct. So I think it's time to come back for you for some skiing experience or excursion to Jungfrau Joch, top of Europe. Well, indeed, the biggest advantage is actually the time saving, but also I have to say it's an improvement in quality as well. As we, as a skier in the past or last season, for example, you had to catch a train actually to go to the ski area. So now we really upgraded that, and you can take our new 3S cable car all the way to Eiger Glacier. And I can give you some examples. For example, if you travel from Bern, our capital, or also from Interlaken, you will save 47 minutes until you are on the slope. So this is a massive time saving.
I did see that. Let's see, 1 hour 49 minutes from Bern to the slopes, and 2 hours 50 minutes from Zurich to the slopes. And when I've travelled in Switzerland, I always go by train anyway. But it does there's a charm in travelling by train when you're in that Jungfrau area. But this lift will make it significantly better and quicker to get on the mountain. Can I ask a question? So can you remind me where it goes from and to?
Yes, of course. I mean, you mentioned the travel by train. I don't have to disappoint you, because you can still reach the ski area actually by train. So from Interlaken, you catch a train on the way to Grindelwald, and just before Grindelwald we have a new train stop, so we are perfectly connected to the railway network.
Right.
And from there it's called Grindelwald Terminal, and from there you have the cable car departure. So that means the new cable car starts in Grindelwald itself, connected directly to the railway network.
Excellent. And so the Eiger Express will take you up to, is it 2,300 meters?
Yes, correct. The final station of the Eiger Express is at Eiger Glacier, which is a bit more than 2,300 meters above sea level. And for the people who want to go to Jungfrau Joch, there is also the possibility then to change again on a train to reach the top of Europe on 3,454 meters. Of course, for the skiers, they want to go immediately on the slopes. For the one who want to go hiking, want to enjoy the winter scenery, they can still go higher up to Jungfrau Joch, top of Europe.
Yeah, and it's a stunning area. There's 3 mountains that run across the range there that I'm pretty sure that most listeners will have heard of, and they are. I'm not sure I'm going to get them in order, but they're the Eiger, the Jungfrau, and the Monch. Is that right?
Totally correct. Just in terms of how they are situated, it would be Eiger, Mönch, and then Jungfrau. So you were almost correct.
Okay, and they stand for, I think if you translated them to English, Eiger is the ogre, the Jungfrau is the young lady, and the Monch is a monk.
Yeah, that's correct.
There must be some story behind that. I'm sure it's not just, it sounds like a joke, you put them all together, but what's the story there?
Yeah, there are some tales about the names of the mountains, and yeah, it's simply to say Eiger is a male man, and Jungfrau is a virgin lady, and in between you have the monk, so protecting the Jungfrau mountain from the Eiger. But the complete story, you better read online. You can find this story. It's very interesting.
Right, okay, well, we'll look into that one. And I got one other question about the lift itself. It's called like a V cableway. And I thought that, when I said, when I was looking around, I thought the lift was going to be shaped like a V, but I understand now that's not the case. It's because there's two lifts. Is that right? Like departing in a V direction?
Yes, correct. Now from the new terminal in Grindelwald, you can travel on one cable car to Mannlichen and on the other one to Eiger Glacier, where you can reach also the ski area. So we have kind of two new lifts. And also to add, very impressive to travel on the Eiger Express is that you travel in front of the Eiger North Face, which is one of the most famous walls in North Faces in the Alps. And from there you can see the 1,800 meters rocks just in front of you next to the cable car. So I'm also looking forward personally to see this view out of a cable car.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick a photo of the the kind of plan into the show notes so people can see it, and put a link in there as well. But yeah, it looks like you're arriving almost directly under the face, aren't you?
Yes, correct. You fly like in front of the Eiger North Face, which is very impressive, of course. Also,
Cool.
I just wanted to add that the new cable car is huge. So we have 26 seats in each gondola,
Right.
which is great also in these times to protect each other. And I'm very convinced that this new cable car will be a big success for the ski area, for the Jungfrau ski region.
Yeah, great. Well, I definitely look forward to trying to come out and try it myself this winter at some point. There's a lot of factors at play that will determine whether or how I get to do that. But I have got a reporter on the ground in Switzerland who will come and try it for us if I'm not able to do it myself. Otherwise, I wish you all the best for the season. And it opens on did you say the 5th of December, Remo?
Yes, correct. 5th of December, we have the official opening. So after that date, you're free to travel to Switzerland and to enjoy the new cable car and the ski area.
Cool. All right. Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that with us, and all the best for the season.
Thank you so much, and stay healthy.
Now, I know, Krystelle, that you have never been to Jungfrau. Just something suggests to me that you haven't. Alex, have you been over there? Grindelwald?
The closest I've got to is on Instagram.
Following it on Instagram?
The Jungfrau Railway. I follow them on Instagram, and the views look amazing.
Yeah, do they have a lot to say?
They seem to put out a lot of content, considering it's the same views all the time, but they're still amazing views.
Well, according to Remo, on this new lift, you're going to get amazing views of the north face of the Eiger, which, if I recall correctly, Shane McConkey threw himself off at some point, didn't he?
He probably did, yes.
Yeah, and I skied over there when I did the Inferno a few years ago, and I was over in Murren, which is in the other side of that Jungfrau region. And what I found a little bit frustrating about getting around that ski area is that there's lots of these little train rides. To get from Murren to Wengen to Grindelwald, you're going to all these trains. So a nice new modern gondola like the Eiger Express will make things much easier. But let's transition from Switzerland, much as I love talking about the place, to France. Alex, you're based in Courchevel. You said it's raining today. Does that mean it's snowing higher up?
I think it's scheduled to snow tomorrow, maybe.
Is it?
It's still a bit warm at the moment, which is annoying. If it was cold, then you can think snowy peaks. But if it's warm, you just go, I'm just getting wet now. It's just depressing.
Well, you told me earlier, off air, I guess we were in the green room or whatever it was, that there's a lot of construction going on in Courchevel. What is new? What's coming up in Courchevel for this winter?
Well, several things. Thanks to Sir Jim Radcliffe of Ineos, who made a very large donation to the Club de Sport, they have completely changed the existing Gstaad by putting a massive new building at the bottom with parking, and it's huge. It looks absolutely amazing.
I saw a
And
picture of it the other day. Was that an artist's impression, or has it actually been built, the building?
they are planning on getting it watertight by this winter,
Right.
and then doing the interior next year.
Yeah, and I think I'm right in saying, because I went out there last year and I did talk to Bruno Tuer,
Yes,
who's the
the head of the
director of the Club de Sport, and he told me that Jim Ratcliffe's daughter races in, at the Club de Sport. She's like a teenager. I can't remember how old she is. I think she goes to school in Geneva and she races there. So he's a big fan, and he gifted them something like 13 million euros to build this, right?
I thought it was nearer 20.
Well, there you go. Okay, so when you're the type of guy who can just like gift 20 million euros to your local ski club, particularly when it's Courchevel 1850, who I'm thinking probably aren't short of money anyway, right?
No, I mean, when you find the small change in your pockets and you go, oh, here's 20 million or whatever the number is, it's like a telephone number. I'm sure any resort, regardless, will be have their hands out going, yes, please, because
yeah. And so they're building that at the bottom of the Gstaad, which is in 1850. I think it's called the Emile Allais, isn't it, Gstaad, where
Yes.
they do the Women's World Cup racing.
Which
But in addition
December.
to that, when I went out and was talking to Bruno, he showed me the plans for the downhill run for the 2023 World Championships. And they have now named that the Eclipse, is what they're calling it. How is that looking? Have you had a look? You know, I realise you haven't skied it yet, but I know you like to get out and explore on the slopes.
Yeah, when we went up to watch the Tour de France, they have like marked out where the new piste is. Looking at the route that it's taking, it looks like it's going to be great. I mean, I can see that it's going to be a welcome addition to Courchevel and the Three Valleys.
Because in the kind of press information that I've seen about it, they are suggesting that people will be able to ski the Eclipse this winter. But when I was briefed on the course, he was explaining to me that people are going to hit a ridge at the Bout Blanc, the restaurant there, where they'll fly off this ridge at about 130 kilometers an hour and might, travel 50 meters in the air. I'm wondering how are they going to have lots of boy racers flying off this ridge?
Who can tell? I know at the Bout Blanc restaurant, they're actually building a tunnel underneath it so that people can actually go past when they're actually racing. But I'm sure as soon as they open it, there'll be boy racers thinking, let's be the first to go and do whatever. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people picking up bits of skier as they go down the hill.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in episode 60, we were talking about ski tech, and these days people love their ski tracks or Strava and want to record how fast they go, and I'm sure people will be trying to get the fastest known time on the course before there's an official race on it.
I always find those apps, especially maybe not that you have on the phone, that are maybe a little over optimistic about giving you the speed that you're going.
Oh yeah,
because I always come across people who go, I was going 90 miles an hour, and I'm going, Lindsey Vonn doesn't even go 90 miles an hour. But
right, you think they're designed to flatter the skier?
I think so, slightly, yes.
Right,
add 10%.
Right, interesting. And as well, you said you went up for the Tour de France, which I think technically was sort of in Méribel rather than in Courchevel. The finish was at the top of the Col de la Loze,
yes.
I believe. What was the atmosphere like that day?
It was great. I mean, and despite like the warnings of lockdowns and of mask wearing, everybody was like of high spirits and sitting around watching the world go by, and eventually watching some very tired cyclists go by. I'm lucky enough to have been here in 2004 when Lance Armstrong came through Courchevel.
Yeah.
And it's the same there. It's just this great atmosphere of just of just, it's a very French thing, and I was pleased to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Tour de France, and I was in Courchevel in 1997 when they had a stage finish there, which was won by Jan Ullrich, I think. But what I really liked about it, I stood around the entrance to 1850, and as the leaders were coming up the hill through 1650, winding their way, you can see the helicopter above, and they're getting nearer and nearer, and there's this wave of sound as they get closer to you. And obviously, they were going relatively slowly on the steeper bits, which made it a bit better as well. Can I ask you another question about the Col de la Loze? I saw some photos the other day. I know they're building a new reservoir up there, which I believe is to feed the snow cannons. Have you seen that at all?
Yes, it is absolutely huge. When you stand by the side of it and look down into this like abyss of this hole that they've built, or dug, sorry, it is monstrous to feed snow cannons, fine, but also like the destruction of a mountain to do it is also, you know, so you have to balance this thing up of going, yes, if you want to guarantee snow all season long, but then if you're a marmot who's been living there for his life and he's been evicted, that's another thing.
That, again, when I was over there before, I think they said to me the reason they've had to do it is because FIS regulations state that if you want to hold a World Championships race, you have to have a minimum number of snow cannons and a certain amount of capacity, and they needed to install it to be able to create that. But it does mean that Courchevel now has the highest capacity for snowmaking for any resort in France, it might be.
Looking down into it, when you see a JCB that looked like that big.
Yeah, this is audio, remember, Alex? That,
sorry,
Alex is saying something that's very small.
Something that's tiny, and you think, and it just, it makes you, it's one of those things that makes you feel small when you look at it. Right. It's just, you know, but...
Well, presumably it'll be full of water by the time we get to see it, so it'll never quite look like that. But you will, essentially, everyone will notice it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not, because it's like, don't look over there, look over there.
Okay. Krystelle, can I ask you, Courchevel, have you, I know you didn't go there last season, have you been skiing in Courchevel before?
Yes, I have. I've done the Three Valleys several times. Val Thorens is obviously one of the top end of season trips. So in the ski industry, it's where we end up most Aprils. So yeah, I've done a lot of skiing in Courchevel and Méribel as well. So yeah, amazing area, and it's really great to hear all the improvements that are going on in resort. I'm a big fan of what's new next season. So yeah, and it's really exciting what Courchevel in particular are doing in preparation for the World Championships.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the World Championships. I mean, 2023 still seems like quite a long time away, but they've been preparing for it for a long time. And then obviously the Eclipse run as well. To actually get onto, or to be able to host the World Championships, which is being held joint between Courchevel and Méribel. So the men's races are in Courchevel and the women's races are in Méribel. And I believe in Méribel, they're also making changes there to be able to run the women's downhill race. They're rerouting or putting a bridge in, maybe a tunnel that you mentioned, Alex, so that skiers can still ski without it being an issue. If you could go anywhere this winter, Krystelle, where would it be?
Oh, anywhere. Sounds like I need to go to Switzerland. So, Switzerland's been the top of my list for quite a while. It sounds really. I've been to Tignes, not hundreds of times, but so many times. So I'm really excited to go back to Tignes. Again, it's sort of like one of one of the first places that I ever went actually snowboarding in my case. And yeah, I would be very happy to go there again this winter and for many other winters. But
and what about quarantine? Would you be prepared to quarantine? Because just to introduce this, Mountain Travel Network did a survey a little while ago where they showed that I think 27% of people would be prepared to quarantine for 14 days. But if you cut that down to 7 days, the figure would go up to over 50%. Would you be prepared to quarantine to be able to get a ski holiday in?
I would, but I know I'm very different to the general public, and with you guys, we are, skiing and snowboarding is our love, and especially like me, I didn't get to go last year, so it's been sort of nearly 2 years since I last went. So like I'm dying to go any way possible. So I'm willing to do the 2-week quarantine. Hopefully it will only be 7 days, if it comes to it. But yeah, I guess I'm in a good place. I work in marketing. I can work from home easily. I've got a nice house, so yeah, I'm quite happy to quarantine for 2 weeks, if it came to it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, whether or not it could happen. I'm certainly hoping to be able to go skiing in Scotland, and in fact, in the next episode we'll be talking about Scotland, but I'll come to that later. But we'll see how that progresses. Let's move on from skiing and quarantine, which we could probably talk about forever. Earlier this week, I was lucky enough to interview Florian, who is the sustainability manager and transparency manager for Picture Organic Clothing. Let's have a quick listen to that.
So the main question when they created the brand was to ask, all right, how could make a snow jacket, which is our main activity still at the moment, making technical products for skiing, snowboarding, so basically snow jackets. So how could we make one without using conventional polyester coming from oil? You have to know that the conventional way of producing a jacket, a snow jacket, is to drill some oil to create something called polyester, and then creating a yarn and a fabric, a polyester fabric. So it has something like this, asking this simple question: how could we avoid this conventional polyester coming from oil? And one of the solutions was to use recycled polyester from plastic bottles, so from post-consumer plastic bottles. And this is something we are still doing 12 years after, with the exact same supply chain in Taiwan. So we know every aspect of that supply chain, from the recycling of plastic bottles until the finished product, and every step.
I have, when I was having a look around your website yesterday, there's a tremendous video on there which goes through that process of how you convert plastic bottles into yarn that you can use to make materials, and it is quite amazing. And obviously that's a very big setup there. So you've worked with the same partners in Taiwan for all of the history of the company, is that correct?
Yeah, we've been working with them for 12 years now. So they are still making our products, and they were making the very first jacket in 2009. And that's really interesting and relevant for us to be able to still working with those same partners, because it's, for me, one of the best way to improve what you're doing in terms of materials, in terms of dyeing process, in terms of energy for the whole supply chain. Knowing the people, knowing also the brand, the other companies that work with those partners is one of the main aspects.
I found that really fascinating. I mean, we've discussed sustainable skiwear on the podcast before. We had Rachel from Eco Ski on in episode 57, and in episode 59 I interviewed Alex from Kahaya Straits, who also are making their jackets out of recycled plastic. Thinking about sustainability, Krystelle, is it important to you? Do you think about that when you're buying your ski clothing or clothing in general?
Yeah, I definitely think about it now more than ever, that maybe I didn't really in the past, but it's it's definitely a hot topic this year in the last sort of couple of years. So yeah, and not just for me, I think for consumers as well going forward, it is a very important aspect, and it will go out into into holidays. People will start thinking about, because I think ultimately everyone wants to be kinder to the environment now, and I can totally imagine this will be a bigger thing over the next few years. So
yeah, well, I mean, they've
yeah.
certainly developed, very fast. 2008 they founded, or they started, and they're going very well. I quoted some stats in that particular interview, which said that many people are prepared to pay more for sustainable clothing, and the younger you are, the more likely you are to be prepared to pay more. The baby boomers, only 12% of them would pay more, but got to get my gens right, Gen Z, I think they are, 31% are prepared to pay more. What about you, Alex? I mean, you probably spend, broken legs aside, quite a lot of days on the mountain, every winter. So for you, you are using your ski equipment a lot more than just like once a year or something like that. Do you think about the sustainability aspects of it when you buy your kit?
I go about it in a different way, in the fact that I'm still wearing the same ski clothing that I had like 6 years ago, and until it actually falls off me, I don't actually replace it. So I don't need to have the latest colors every year or anything like that. And I get a lot of pushback from friends going, "Your jacket is so dirty, please buy another one," because, and I'm just like, okay, yes, but so yes, I ski on skis that are 10 years old. My salopettes are like 5 years old. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So,
Well, no, that's exactly right. I mean, part of the philosophy that Picture Organic and other sustainability producers follow is that they're trying to produce equipment and kit that will last a long time, but also to get it repaired. I mean, repair workshops are much more common. I don't know if they existed a few years ago, and now they're quite a regular thing. I think they get organised every month or so in Courchevel. Is that right?
There's one called One Tree at a Time.
Yeah.
Which are very into recycling everything from like ski instructors' jackets that have never been worn to just, repairing stuff that has got a little tear in it and reselling it. And, it's a really good idea, in that way, stuff that was
sure.
just
I think Patagonia, put on free repair workshops around the Alps as well. What I have noticed is that, probably, Krystelle, you see this as well. You get a lot of press packs from the different ski resorts, and they all have a section about their sustainability and sustainable options. And I'm constantly scanning for what I would consider to be greenwashing and what are actually, genuinely positive moves forward. And I mean, I noticed that Les Noire, almost their whole press pack was about sustainability and all of the different things that they're doing. I mean, they're not alone in that respect, but they've really chosen to make it a focus. Les Arcs as well is another resort that's really focused on that. They're trying to get their Flocon Vert accreditation this year. Have you noticed resorts trying to get that sustainability message across more?
Oh yeah, definitely. As you said, pretty much every resort now, that is one of their new areas when they release what's new for this season. So yeah, it's as you said, there's like different fluctuations of it. There's they might just be doing a small little thing, or they might be doing big things. But I think at the moment, anything that sort of ski resorts can do to have a greener reputation is good. And what consumers as well can also do to sort of help it be a more sort of greener
well, I
sport
mean,
as well.
I mean, you're absolutely right in that respect, because the consumer makes the biggest single difference in terms of the carbon footprint of a ski holiday is how you decide to travel to a resort. And Ski Flight Free, the kind of campaign I set up, is trying to encourage people to choose to take other options other than flying. What's also very interesting is that recent research has shown that this winter, way more people want to drive, specifically, more planning to take the train than to fly. Even though, as far as I've seen, flying you're not particularly likely to catch COVID if you fly. However, people feel more secure traveling in that bubble, and the number of, I'll put the link in the show notes, but I blogged about this recently. Again, Mountain Travel Network's research showing that the number of people who are planning to drive this winter, assuming we can all travel, is effectively doubling. That is a good thing as far as, you know, reducing a carbon footprint is concerned. Another topic we could talk about for hours, but I'm going to move on because we've got a few more things to squeeze into the show. Again, this week it's been a busy time with all these extra interviews. I spoke to Winona and Simi from Mount Noire, a tour operator specialising in trips for black British skiers. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Winona Barnier and Simi Oka, who are the co-founders of Mount Noire. And I wondered if we could just start off, maybe Winona, if you wanted to explain a little bit about what Mount Noire is.
Okay, so thank you for having us today, Iain. So Mount Noire is a travel community made of 5 black British girls who have a passion for skiing. We set up the company just to sort of, you know, do what we like to invest, go skiing with other people on top of the mountains, and mainly to promote the sport towards black and ethnic minorities in the ski industry.
Excellent. And how long ago did you set up then, Simi? When was your first trip?
Yeah, sure. So our first trip was in 2019. We went to Chamonix. It was a concept trip initially. We wanted to understand sort of what the interest would be. And so we went with a small group of people to Chamonix, which was an amazing experience. We really enjoyed it. But one of the things we definitely noticed when we were skiing in Chamonix as a group of black females was that we had a lot of people sort of being quite surprised by us and sort of asking us questions, which kind of further validated the need for what we were trying to build, which is a group where actually being a black person or being an ethnic minority in skiing isn't unusual. In fact, it's the norm. And so that kind of pushed us to go forward with this idea of Mount Noire to help to encourage other minorities to also join us on the mountains, you know, and bring colour to the mountains generally.
Great. In fact, I love in your strapline, I suppose it'd be called, your mission is to bring colour to the mountains. You're looking to increase inclusivity. Winona, why do you think so few black or ethnic minorities actually do go skiing?
So there are a number of factors that lead to this, and the main thing is sort of accessibility. So skiing, you know, isn't something that most black or ethnic minority individuals do. It's typically a white sport, and that's just mainly due to geography. There aren't many sort of resorts where people live. It's often people start skiing at school or at university, and unfortunately, if you haven't been exposed to it, you aren't particularly going to pick up this sport. And I think one of the main things is about representation, particularly in the media. So when you do look at ski magazines and ski brands, it's not very often that you see somebody who is black or of an ethnic minority. And I think that also deters people who would, in another sense, want to do skiing as such. So that's what we would try to promote in our company and our brand as such.
Yeah, you need a more positive representation would help. I think I interviewed a chap called Benjamin Alexander on a podcast special, I don't know, about a month ago, and he is endeavouring to become the first Jamaican to compete as a skier at the Winter Olympics. Are you familiar with Benjamin? Do you think he would help in that respect?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having any figurehead that is more present in the media who is a man of color, a black man of color, would be hugely helpful in terms of representation, both for young people and older people alike, to be honest.
Excellent. And there's also another organisation who do some great work called Snow Camp, also based down here in Brighton. Have you ever come across them at all?
So we are familiar with Snow Camp and the work that they're doing at the moment. So they're doing amazing things with helping kids from a particular urban background get involved with skiing and snowboarding.
Yeah. What about this winter then? You mentioned last year you went to Chamonix, and I think there was another trip to Bansko. Are you offering, obviously we've got some challenging times at the moment, but you know, assuming travel works, what trips have you got offered for this winter?
Yeah, so this year March 2021, we intend to go to Val Thorens for our largest trip yet. We understand that there are some difficulties in terms of being able to predict what's going to happen in the market. But what we've done is we've made sure that we're connecting with suppliers who offer protection against those things. So financial protection to make sure that if anything does happen, unfortunately, and the trip has to be moved, we can accommodate for that. So, we're very keen to make sure this still happens. I think we're coming to a point in the world where we have to get used to some of these uncertainties. And so we're still in a point where we're in a place where we think we can offer that trip, just with the securities necessary.
Yeah, well, we certainly hope you can. And if our listeners wanted to hear more about that, is it mountnoire.com?
Yes, it is. Mountnoire.com.
Or just search Mount Noire. I mean, obviously, the medical side of things, I believe that you both work in the NHS. Is that correct?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so you'd probably be very, aware of everything going on. Can you fit in skiing around all of that time as well? I mean,
with great difficulty.
We plan ahead, and we always manage to go on a ski trip every year as a group. So that's
right. And how long ago did you personally start skiing then, Winona? When did you start?
So I first learned how to ski in 2014. I started to learn on dry slopes in the UK.
You did? Which one?
Just outside of London, just in Bromley sort of area.
Okay. Yeah, and Simi?
So I actually went on my first ski trip in my first year of medical school. So that was 2012. It was a trip that was offered, and my housemate at the time would not stop talking about it. And she was like, "We have to go. We must go." And it was the best decision I made in my life. It was just, I went and spent all this money and then got out there, and I was absolutely taken aback by it. And I, me being me, I was like, I'm not going to get ski lessons, and I sort of jumped on the slopes. Don't practice this at home. Just jumped on the slopes and practiced over the next couple of days, and ended up getting quite good and really enjoyed it. And ever since have loved it since then, and tried to go regularly. So
great. Well, I mean, that sounds really good. Apart from not having lessons, which doesn't sound like the best way of approaching it.
No.
But certainly, I wish you all the best with Mount Noire. I believe possibly our paths will be crossing, because I think you will be at the National Snow Show, which we've mentioned a few times on the podcast, scheduled to be, if all goes well, I think in September, October of next year. But obviously, if people want to find out more, then go to mountnoire.com just now. So thank you very much, Winona and Simi, and all the best for this winter. And also thanks for all of your work on the NHS as well.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you for having us, Ian.
So I found that really interesting. We talked about Benjamin Alexander, the Jamaican skier who I interviewed in a ski podcast special last month. And they're saying that he could be a really good role model and help black skiers feel that they can identify with a skiing holiday and increase diversity. And as it goes, they're going to be at the National Snow Show next year, in October next year as well. So I think we'd have to agree that will be a good thing. Talking about the National Ski Show, you can actually get free tickets at the moment. They're basically giving away 2,000 free tickets. I'm going to put a link into the show notes so that you can have a look about it. But this is the show that's going to be at the NEC in Birmingham in October 2021. A long way off. Who knows, what will happen, but I would say get your name down and get the free tickets. So I'll put a link in the show notes and you can find out about that. Right, we're going to move on to Ski Book Group. Ski Book Group. I've got a quick question for you. You had a little bit of notice, but not very long. It's not a big book. Alex and Krystelle, did either of you read A Whole Life by Robert C. Tyler?
No, I haven't been able to.
No, you have not done your homework.
I know, I'm sorry.
So that's okay, because I'm going to recommend it. The book is about a man who is born and brought up on a farm in the Austrian Alps. And as his life progresses, he's born in the early 20th century, he sees that particular place become a ski resort. He works on the team that builds the first cable car, and in the end he becomes a mountain guide as well, and he sees the first hotels built in the resort. And it's not a history of a ski resort at all, but it's a very warm and profound story of someone's life, but set in the type of environment that I think that all skiers would really enjoy reading about. It's very evocative of the mountains and an era that we often forget about. I think sometimes you go to a ski resort and you forget that people have lived here for centuries, not just since the ski lifts were there. And as it goes, in the case of this book, there's certain people who own certain bits of the mountain who end up becoming very rich. And you see this in every ski resort. I mean, I don't know if, is Courchevel like that? Are there a few families that own most of Courchevel, or is it?
I think every ski resort has like 3 or 4 families that basically own everything. And as you say, they were like farmers that have all of a sudden become multi-millionaires. So yeah, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, Krystelle, that you went into Zermatt. In Zermatt, there's the Perrons and the Eulens. I think, broadly speaking, they own pretty much everything over there. And if you go to St Anton, you'll see the Falk family, you know, in lots of the properties, or they're called after them over there. But I would recommend A Whole Life by Robert Seethaler. It won't take you very long to read at all. And it's a very beautiful book if you love the mountains. And I'll just mention as well that we're going to have our one-off special about the book Aiming High, which is the life of Ern Low by Mark Frary. That will probably come out in November or December. Delighted to receive a few reviews, and they're always very welcome. You can review us on iTunes, and that helps other people find us. Alex Soden did that. He said he was very sad to hear Jim is leaving after a wonderful run of podcasts. This is a series that first got me into podcasts. Well, that is great to hear, Alex, and you still listen to each episode. So that's also really good. Thanks for your comments about my insight. What I really like was the fact that you are 21. And that's really good to know that we have younger listeners as well, because I seem to recall someone criticised us before. So thanks for your 5-star review. Stephen Morgan said this podcast is definitely one to tune into. The back episodes are worth a listen. So listener, if you've not listened to the other 60-odd episodes, then tune in. Stuart Johnston said, congratulations on 3 years. I almost hadn't noticed, but we've been doing these podcasts for 3 years now. He's about a year behind catching up. So that's quite a long time to go. That must mean, Krystelle, it was around 3 years ago that you last appeared on the show.
Yeah, I can remember the flat that I was in Balham when I recorded, and that was it was like 3 years ago now. Wow.
And Alex, I think you've probably been on every year during the course of our podcasting.
Yes, I have. Yes, it's all good.
Don't sound so cheery about it. You can be on next episode as well if you want to send us a little snow report from team.
Sure.
If you'd like to.
My pleasure.
Also on next episode, we're going to have Ed Drake, who is the presenter of the Ski Racing podcast. He's also been on the show before, but he's going to be coming on and giving us a brief on the World Cup season, which has already started in Solden last weekend. We're going to be talking about skiing in Scotland in a bit more detail, and also ski touring. We discussed in the last episode how there's a trend towards ski touring. With people wanting perhaps to avoid lifts and maybe not even wanting to buy a lift pass. So we're going to be talking about ski touring in Chamonix and the area. So listener, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share it. Let your friends know about the show. And you can contact us on social media at The Ski Podcast. That's the same on Twitter and Facebook. And give us your reviews. You can follow me at Skipedia. I'd like to thank my guests for today, Krystelle from snow.co.uk and Alex from 150 Days of Winter. And I'd like to thank you, listener. So goodbye, everyone, and look forward to coming back again in another couple of weeks. Thank you.